Hey guys, I'm Twelve58 here. Today I want to talk about these community draft proposals, which are actually polls. And we're asking, the community has been asked to answer whether or not we want to reinstate card levels within leagues, or whether we want rebellion cards to be locked or unlockable. And finally, what should be the cost to unlock cards? I think it's important. It sets down for those who are paying attention how this game offers reward. When we talk about are cards locked or unlockable, what are the fees associated with that, and maybe to a lesser extent the issue of league level, deeply important. So I hope you'll stick around for this one, and if you do, let me know in the comments below what you think. Have an amazing day. God bless. I went to Peak Monsters. I came into Explore. We find the proposal dashboard, and these are the community ones. The three that I want to touch on are these community polls, which are not binding but pretty pivotal. Look at the approval rates thus far. These are each, they're going to expire in 3 days, which means they've been up for 4 days. I haven't actually voted on any of them. I haven't actually reviewed them until this morning. I reviewed them before we went live. Let's do it one at a time, and I'll try and make this a video that I share with the community, because I do want people to be thoughtful about this. I don't necessarily have my opinions etched in stone on these topics at this moment, but I'll say that these community, I approve of these community polls in the sense that, like, it's really important that we allow SPS to, I think one of the secrets to how we drive at success, and it's also a barrier, it's a challenge in some respects, but one of the angles of success is the opportunity to award or appoint that stake weighted vote associated with our SPS bag. And it makes SPS, it gives SPS a form of value and utility. It also drives the design of this space from the voice and the thoughtfulness of those who are most deeply invested and presumably the most deeply concerned. So I love that. And these are not binding, but I like that that's an angle of sort of seeking approval or seeking confidence from the community. The first one that I got pulled up here is the community poll with respect to reinstating card levels and limits by league. This feels like a deeply complicated conversation, and my first inkling is like a pass, like a no, like let's not do it. Because the reason I say this is because I'm enjoying the challenge associated with playing the game with my modern deck and trying to get as high as I can, which is generally speaking gold. And I don't know, it seems like the rewards have gotten quite significant, quite substantial from playing ever since they implemented the alterations, which radically transformed how many accounts were playing in the lower leagues of and how many SPS tokens were being paid out at the lower leagues. I don't really, some of the criticisms I've heard towards the existing league levels were kind of pointed at people want to be able to fight in a league that they want to choose, and it's hard to do that when you make me move up. And the other side of it was, we see diamond level decks and champion level decks fighting in gold, and that's annoying to a gold league player. Yeah, I get those as angles and considerations, and maybe it's selfish of me to feel that like it's fun to enjoy my Diamond League deck in Champion, or I mean in Gold. So I could be convinced, but I think I'm leaning towards personally not valuing this return, because it seems the one core point I'm driving at is that there's a lot of SPS being paid out in the higher leagues as a result of some of what this changed, because it drove away, in part it served to drive away some of those lower league accounts, because it lowered those rewards at the lower league level. But yeah, I could be convinced. So we're looking at feedback on whether or not the community would prefer to reinstate the card levels, and I mean, it looks like 90% of people feel this is worth doing. And you know, I see a lot of value. I see a lot of part of me says you should have to buy the cards to reach a higher league level. If you're running into other accounts that have better cards than you and they're beating you, you should have to buy better cards to climb out a higher into the next league. Even if they have diamond cards and they're standing in your way and you're fighting in gold. But having said that, I don't know, maybe that's setting too high a bar for the average player that we want to come to the game. And so if we keep card cap levels capped at every league level, I can argue, I can find my mind, my logic bringing me to a place of, well, you know what you need to fight in bronze. You know what you need to fight in gold. But isn't it true that if you're in gold, you know what you need to fight in gold, irrespective of whether we have card league levels? Do you see what I mean? Like, okay, the old format where gold cards are capped at gold league level. You need level 6 rares, you need level 5 epics, level 4. No, level 6 rare commons. No. Level 8 commons, level 6 rares, level 5 epics, and level 3 legendaries, I think, if you were in gold. And now the truth is you probably need bigger than that. Isn't it still true that in the current setting, you kind of know if you want to play at the highest level of diamond, you need, it's not like, what do I need? You know that you need a max level Chaos Legion set. You know that you need most of the best cards from Riftwatchers and Rebellion. It's not as cut in stone as to what you need, but it's still pretty clear that there's a certain line in the sand. And so if one of the main complaints about this proposal, or like driving this proposal forward, is that, you know, in gold, I want to know where I stand. I feel like we still do. So I don't know. I'm flip-flopping. I don't know that I have a firm opinion on this one. I would be personally leaning towards no, but I can see logic towards saying yes. I'm going to abstain on that one for those reasons. Rebellion reward cards. The SPS governance proposal system provides a good way to conduct a stake-weighted poll. Oh yeah, I read that earlier. For this poll, we're looking for feedback on whether or not the new set of Rebellion cards scheduled to release on August 15th should be soul-bound like the current Chaos Legion reward cards, or should be unlocked and tradable, as with previous reward sets. This, I didn't even know this proposal was being, or not proposal, that this community poll was being led. I actually didn't know this was one of the 3 topics until this morning when I read it. This, to me, I've got stronger opinions. And maybe a firmer opinion. I can see 2 sides to the coin. It feels though to me, having soulbound assets is a very fun experience, in my opinion. And I will admit that it is fun to me, because I have been able to acquire some of them and not all of them. If you have not been able to acquire any of them, that would be frustrating. But if you can't acquire any of them, it either means you don't have any assets, like any significant SPS bag, or no significant cards, and therefore you're not winning a lot of glint, and therefore you're not getting a lot of chests. And so if you don't have assets, you shouldn't receive assets. That point has to be stated. If you have no investment in the game, you should get almost no return. And so it's complicated, because I also don't think they should get 0 return. I think it should get very limited. I do think soulbound rewards given to them is fine, as long as they stay soulbound, or if they're meant to be. But then, again, the argument then is, well, I can't get them and I want them, and it's an unfair advantage, and I'd love to have access, and I want them to be made transferable. And so some people say, I hate the game because they're not unlockable. And I can't get the asset, and I lose to an asset I don't have. And other people say, I'm a collector and I want to collect everything. And other people say, it's really, like me, it's really fun to not have them and seek after them. And I feel like those are at least 2 different audiences that we're not going to be able to please simultaneously. And so we've tried soulbound rewards, and we haven't really tried it for very long. 1 issuance of soulbound reward cards, and we haven't even gone through an unlocking phase yet. And so I don't really feel like we've given the soulbound approach a fair shake. I feel like a lot of the desire within the community lately, seeking after change, might actually be at its core related not to a better way forward being available or visible to us, but in fact more out of a place of like things aren't where we want them to be, let's change it up. And that's never, like, if you guys watch sports, you never want, sometimes you get your team gets into a place where they're on a losing streak, and then you get a trade just for trade's sake. Like one of your old players, your best players gets traded because we need some fresh blood or we need new sort of life in the team. And that trading in those scenarios is where, in my opinion, you end up getting less value for your important assets. And so my approach might be more prudent and more slow, and it would be just to kind of sit and wait and see what happens. So I would be inclined to say, no, I don't want the next reward cards to be unlocked. And yet I do want them to be unlockable. And that's another proposal, like how that works. We'll get into that in a minute. But I want them to be unlockable, but I want them definitely to be locked. And if they are unlockable, I would be okay with them being unlockable on day one, which I think People's Guild talked about. So that'd be an iteration on what we're already experiencing. But I really think any attempt to make them simply unlocked is actually out of a place of seeking personal gain across a short period of time. And that's never been what Splinterlands has offered. I'm going to say that again. I think making the cards unlocked, free, unlocked, period, moving forward, which is the way we used to have it, would be an attempt to restore a degree of income to the player base. And I don't know that that is valuable across a long time horizon, but it would be felt as a value to the player in the short term. You would see new assets coming into your portfolio that you can sell immediately. They might, generally speaking, be limited in value because they're so easy to come by, but they would be immediately add to your card valuation. People want that, I think, more than they want long-term sustainability within the reward structure of Splinterlands. And I do think that's the two sides of this. It's like immediate gratification or long-term sustainability within the reward structure of Splinterlands. Because if we talk about making cards soulbound as a reward system, there's a way you can get paid and enjoy something. And yes, it's a payment for your time and attention that allow you to win more and play as you play more, and then maybe get more SPS or play in more tournaments and have greater success. That's a reward. There's a financial reward associated with the soulbound reward cards, even if they're locked and not unlockable. But ultimately, this is saying that they ultimately would, even if this proposal or community poll doesn't pass or doesn't get upvoted, we would still make the set unlockable, unbindable at some point. So these cards are going to be unbindable at some point. And I think we should have a conversation around what that means. Is it the first day at a really high cost, which is what some people have proposed? Is it 6 months? Is it, and another conversation which is connected, how long are these soulbound sets being issued for? I think the existing soulbound set was issued for too long. And based on information that I heard within the People's Guild conversation with the Investigator, it sounds like probably most people are going to need a year and a half to like 20 to 30 seasons, which is, 40 to 60 weeks. And that's if you're doing quite well, to get all of the soulbounds. And so the next set. And so I feel like that's part of the problem. The issue isn't that the soulbounds are locked or unlocked. The issue isn't that they don't give you value today or not. The issue is that these soulbound sets are issued for like a year and a half at a time or 2 years at a time. There's this massive print rate, and then we want them not to come to the market super cheap because they'll end up undercutting the rest of the community, the card costs. Because if one card's worth a penny and then you introduce this new card that's like super common, it's going to be half a penny, and that's going to cut the other cost of the other cards. So for the real issue is if these sets were issued for shorter. So I think we're just kind of skirting the core issue on this poll. I ultimately would feel strongly that these cards, that all soulbounds are a good thing, that they should be shorter in issuance, they should be unlockable maybe on day one for a real penalty, and ultimately unlockable for a window of time at the end of their issuance, as we're seeing with the Chaos Legion rewards. But that like a 6 or a 9 month window makes a lot more sense than a year and a half. And even if some people can't get there, like the Gladiator cards, most people don't have anywhere close to a full Glad set. I would be okay with them just saying, nope, we're done with these Glads and we're moving on to the next one. And those ones will be issued for a year. And the print rate might allow some of the best players to get a max copy. Do you see what I mean? Like if you did the math and you said the best players buy this much energy, they play this many games, and that produces X amount of glint, that formula could be like your ceiling for who gets a max set. And then everybody else doesn't get a max set. That would be me included, by the way. And so I would be okay with that because I want to see this constant rotation. I want to see limited issuance. I want to see scarcity. I want to see, that the cards be rare and not ubiquitous. And I actually feel like making them unlocked on release is a path to making them ubiquitous and therefore carry less value and therefore undercutting other card valuations. I also think making them unlockable to some extent does that. But if the penalties are appropriate and we have to navigate that wisely, then truly you'll have these limited issuances, and so they won't necessarily cut at the core of the other card prices. And it's fun to have them unlockable, and it's then you're playing the game within the game, because again, it's Splinterlands is a card battler, a CCG with that auto brawler experience, but it's also this economics game where you're managing your assets. And so I want them to be unlockable because I want to enjoy that sort of tokenomics, economic side of this. Scarcity, rarity, supply versus demand. That's all fun as well. And so long story short, I would not support this poll. And before I move on to the third poll, I'm going to read some of your comments if you guys have any. I actually didn't look at your comments with respect to the card levels. If you have comments, I'll read those too, but I don't really care about this one in the same way that I care about the second. And so I'm going to maybe focus on these, but let's see what, if anything, you guys are saying. Gathering says, I want soulbounds to be permanently soulbound, just like Gladiator cards. They are your cards for playing the game. I would be okay with that. It's like, again, I think the drive to have them unlockable or unlocked comes from that short-term reward mindset. There's not an acknowledgement around the intrinsic value that they add to your account by unlocking more victories and therefore earning more SPS, whether it's in guild brawl battles, rank battles, or tournament battles. But they do provide value, and therefore they are a reward, even if they have no price. That's the value versus price argument. And so I would be okay with them remaining permanently locked. But I'm also okay with them being unlockable so long as it doesn't cause incidental damage to the economics of the game, which is what I was trying to point to when I talked about if we have a 1 cent card, like if Chaos Legion commons are worth like 1 penny roughly, just say they are, and we issue soulbound, if we unlock the soulbound commons and they're selling for half a penny, they won't be, but if they were, that would undercut the value of some of the other commons within the Chaos Legion set, meaning the total value of Chaos Legion cards would fall, meaning most of our collections would fall. So it's a net negative to release a new asset if it cuts the throat of the player. That's what we're talking about. It's like you cut your nose to spite your face, people say. We want this value given to us, but then what does that do? This is the strangely connected, like this is economics, man. This game at its core is economics. We look at like economic monetary easing and the government printing money and putting money, into your stimmy checks to Americans. Stimmy checks to Americans give you this short-term relief. You say, oh wow, a couple $1,000. Wow, that's awesome. I'm going to go maybe vacation, maybe buy something, maybe whatever. And you big smile on your face for a few months. But then when 200 million Americans or 100 million Americans cash a $2,000 check, that actually has a big implication on money being spent into the economy, buying goods and services, which causes the retailers to run short on different assets, which cause because of the tension in the supply chain, you see a spike in price. This is inflation. You have more money chasing after limited goods. You're going to see an increase in the price within the ecosystem. But an increase in the US experience is a decrease in the individual citizens' ability to live, right? Inflation is not a good thing, except for if you hold a lot of assets. If you're trying to pay for food and pay for rent and pay for gasoline, it becomes more and more hard to live. But that's what happens when we issue more certificates, more not money but currency into the system. And in the same way, in a similar way, when Splinterlands issues more cards into the ecosystem, it stretches the value that's within the ecosystem, spreading it over more asset, meaning each asset actually has a lower price tag. So there's this immediate felt sense of joy because the cards are unlocked or available, sellable, tradable, transferable, etc. But then there's this long-term negative. There's this unintended consequence, and I don't know if everybody knows that. Paul says gladiators shouldn't be permanently soulbound. When new glad sets come out in the future, then current ones should be unlockable. I would agree with this too. See, I prefer to have the flexibility of self-governance in this, but I actually think the degree to which gathering is right or Paul is right it hinges on the team navigating the price point wisely. If you make the price point too low, you end up saturating the market with these cards, and that will hurt players. It will have that unintended consequence we just talked about. So I would be okay with them being forever locked. I would be okay with them being unlockable, but unlockable requires that extra step of knowing the numbers and understanding the economics. I trust Matt in that, and we'll see if Matt's right or wrong, but I definitely don't think they should just be unlocked. Not gladiators, not rewards, especially now that we've gotten to a place where they are soulbound. Especially since we've said we trust Matt, and Matt feels strongly that the soulbound assets are key. So I just feel like all of making the soulbound or the reward cards unlocked and not soulbound would be indicative of a distrust in Matt's governance, and I think that's foolish. I think that's coming from a place of frustration in this moment and not disappointment in what Matt has done or what he is planning to do. Gathering says maybe add a voucher reward to rank play to give new players a way to get some vouchers by playing. Maybe add a voucher reward to rank play to give. I think vouchers are just problematic in so many ways. And I kind of agree with both People's Guild and Crypto Eater in their expression of how vouchers have complicated needlessly the tokenomics of the game. And I know, Gathering, you're a proponent of the vouchers, and you bought a bag of them. Like I said to you earlier in this video, I would buy some given the state of where they're at, the price point of where they're at, and the planned utilization of them moving forward. All that said, if we could have done without them, if we could just end them, I think that would probably be better for a DEC, SPS, tokenomics, and ultimately the flywheel, long term. Paul says the peak monsters numbers for the proposals are not accurate. Not correct. Okay, the correct numbers are in game. All those proposals are failing by a lot. Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. And finally, Paul says the main reason for unlockable is so new players can get them. We can't have cards that new players can't get in some fashion at some point. I just don't know if I agree with that. I understand. You're right. I didn't kind of articulate that as a serious consideration, and it is. Some people will argue, and maybe you would agree, Paul, that new players coming in are going to feel hamstrung, disappointed, frustrated, annoyed, maybe deterred if they cannot access certain key cards. I think part of me says that's an amazing mark of you should have been here sooner. And if people are wise, it's going to point them to, I better stay consistent with my play, not just show up for 4 weeks during a bull market, but play throughout the year. Make sure I'm getting my matches in because I want that glint. I want those soulbound rewards. I want that because I know in 3-4 years when the game is still here, I'm going to be set apart. So I think for those reasons, I think I just articulated an argument why it's actually not a bad thing, but a good thing that they would be soulbound and that you would never be able to access them, no matter how much you want them. But I understand that it would be frustrating to some extent for some period of time for some players. And we don't want to make extra unnecessary hurdles to prevent players from joining our game. So I can agree to part of what you're saying. It's just that I also see the other side of the coin. I would say, I guess also that we've seen with power creep and card design and the shift from cards out of modern into wild, the game is increasingly being designed in a way where even if you have a key card, it's not necessarily going to remain key forever. And for that reason, you might imagine some of these amazing soulbounds not being necessary in the future at all. Like Izzyar is exceptional. We know it. Maybe there's other taunts that have martyr. Maybe there's other, like that's the key combo there. Maybe there's other martyrs, and in conjunction with the application of taunt through a summoner, you can recreate that similar experience. We've seen a lot of times with a lot of cards that there's new cards that get created that ultimately offer similar utility. If I just went into non-attacking, let's go max, and let's go non-attacking, and let's go legendary. What do we see? Now I know some of these don't fit into the modern mold, but Lord Arianthus, what the? Oh yeah, it's not a legendary. That's why. I've talked about this before, and you two have heard this. But Cube is like Bakjira, and Lord A is similar to Onyx Sentinel. And then Kelp Initiate's like Field Summoner, and on and on and on and on. There's different cards that offer similar utility, and it doesn't mean that they offer everything that the previous card did. But I really don't buy the argument that any single card is absolutely must have. Maybe if you're playing at the highest levels, but most people aren't doing that. So are we talking about the new person who wants to get started and have fun with it, or are we talking about the highest level? Because if we're talking about the creme de la creme and we want the new interested parties to be able to fight for leaderboard of champion, sure, those people need to have access to every single soulbound. But if we're talking about like the masses of people that we want to see come to Splinterlands, we have to admit that they don't need every soulbound to have a fun, engaging, maybe 50% win rate in bronze, silver, gold, wherever they want to land. All that said, I think the most balanced step forward with something like that will be to make them unlockable, to make them locked but unlockable, and then to nail the price point on that. Let's transition to the lower unlock cost for the soulbound rewards, because the third poll that we want to talk about quickly is the idea that they would lower. They want feedback on the unlock cost for the Chaos Legion soulbound rewards. So you upvote the proposal if you feel that the cost for unlocking the Chaos Legion soulbound reward should start at 5x and increase by 1 time every month for 5 months to a max of 10x, and then with all other aspects of unlocking staying the same. So there would be a window of time where it's unlockable and then not unlockable ever again. Versus if you would prefer to let the team stick with the unlocking cost in the post. So that's a 10x, I believe, right? Let's go to the post. I believe it was a 10x. Unbinding reward cards. Yeah, 10. 10 times. I know 10 times is hot. It's expensive, man. It's expensive. A max level right there, a max level dry bone is going to go for 57,000 DC, which is going to be, $30 US for a max dry bone. And you say $3 for a dry bone is expensive since I earned it. That's what people say. Like, I already earned it. I shouldn't have to pay it. But, you know, I think we always knew that they were locked and that they would be unlockable. So I don't know why people felt they should be unlocked for cheap. That seems to be the bit of one of the sticking points. People felt that they would be a cheap unlock. And I don't understand why you thought that. I don't understand why people thought that. I don't know that 10x is the right number. I actually don't feel super strongly about 10x or about 5x. But I think, like I said, with respect to the second point on the reward cards and them being unlockable or locked or locked or unlocked. Yeah, I feel very strongly that they should remain. We should move forward under Matt's approach to have reward cards be locked, and then I'm open to some sort of unlockable on day one, even like a 20x burn rate DC on the power, 20x the power, the CP. It'd be really expensive. We'd be talking about $6 per, like at current DC rates, we'd be talking about $6 per BCX on a legendary. That's a lot, but I think give people the option, and if they end up doing it, it helps our economy because DC will be burnt into that, and it's the choice to do it or not do it. And then you get the declining DC burn rate, and then you get the increasing. You get the window closing too at some point. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that the DC should start at maybe starts at 20x on day one, so they can be unlockable, so people can pay the price if they want to pay the price to, to have the cards that the Paul says people feel they are going to need. And then they buy it at whatever cost they have to pay for it to get it because they feel they have to have it. And then the unlock cost should get cheaper and cheaper. Let's say 6 months in or 9 months in, it starts to increase. That'd be my opinion, because now we want to. There's this window of time where if you're long term in the game, you might say, "Yeah, I'm going to unlock some of these," but then it starts getting more expensive again because that'd be my approach. Because I actually don't want a huge supply of these things, and at the last day of them closing, I don't want tons more to come online. That'd be my approach. But definitely, I think they should be locked and unlockable. And I think they should be limited issuance, not a year and a half, 9 months, 6 months of issuance, and before we rotate to the next one. And I think people need to start reframing how they understand what rewards are in this game, because a soulbound asset that allows you to win more often is a financial reward. Not everybody knows that, and I'm going to keep repeating that until I see more acceptance of that reality, because frankly, I don't think we get what Splinterlands is if we don't understand that the rewards we're earning on a daily basis are significant along a time horizon, across a long time horizon. You might feel they're inconsequential, 9 SPS per win, who cares? Because it's only half a penny in SPS. It matters because we're not thinking days, weeks, months, we're thinking years, and we believe that the SPS could reach somewhere really crazy. And so every win matters. And if every win matters, then the ability to turn a loss into victory matters. And if often that's decided by certain key cards, well, if you just even look at your last 20 matches, how many of them were fought with a reward card that meaningfully changed, the outcome? Right here, let's watch this one. This was a significant battle I fought today. This was a close one. Melee from any position, and I put double martyrs around my Pellicore mercenary. He's got the blast over here, so he hits hard. There's a big miss on my boy over here because of the blind, and then he gets a miss. That miss from my Pellicore mercenary on the Venari Heatsmith allowed my armor to stick around right there. My armor only breaks now. I don't know if that would have mattered. There's the first martyr, and that martyr contributed. So there's two different martyrs that make look at my Pellicore. Look at this. He's fighting a full team, and Buddy's going to go ape on these guys. And the retaliate, say goodnight, and the big heal, and the bombs and the retaliates and the misses for the flight. Let's go. This happened because I had key reward cards that were soulbound, and I got 9.5 SPS because I knew what cards to play but because I had access to cards that not everybody does. And so soulbounds matter. They pay you a financial reward, but you have to understand that that financial incentive is not a days, weeks, months thing. I don't get to sell that soulbound today to receive some sort of benefit today, some lump benefit that might matter, quote unquote. In fact, the only way they matter is that they allow me to win like the game of inches. I get to get a few more wins, which equal a few more SPS, which matter across time, because I don't think SPS will hit half a penny forever. And so the more people that recognize that sort of connection, I think the more times we'll start understanding that rewards don't need to be financial immediately to be financial at their core.